Hi there, Audrey here in Toronto. I'm a wellness educator and I really work from a feminist and social justice perspective. And I talk a lot about workplaces and power and burnout and really trying to reach towards a more equitable workplace so that we can be happier and healthier beings. I really believe that we are humans before we are workers. And sometimes, being at work and the ways that our autonomy can be undermined can be quite dehumanizing. Like some places you're a grown adult and you're not allowed to decide when you go pee, right? So, and I kind of feel like the wellness movement right now is very sort of geared towards trying to make workers more productive. It's like this idea that like, let's have more perks and yoga at work and encourage people to rest and, maybe reduce the hours a little bit. And it's all in the interest of making more productive workers, which is fine. But it's also, what is our question around what's ethical and what's good and sustainable for our society? And I think this coronavirus pandemic, is really, putting a lot of pressure on some people to have to just work a lot. My friend was telling me about someone that, asked to get some time off so that she could take care of her kids, and she got a no because, her work couldn't be covered. So, it's very stressful times. And for the rest of us that are just kind of at home waiting for things to sort of start up again, we can be sort of like rethinking about how we want to work and why we work and that kind of thing. So I've got this great quote from the book Burnout. It's Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And they say, rest matters not because it makes you more productive, but because it makes you happier and healthier. Rest matters because you matter. You are not here to be productive. You are here to be you. And I was kind of thinking about that alongside the work of Dr. David Rock. And what he does is kind of look at the fight, flight, freeze response, like the kind of our mammalian stress response, and how managers can avoid triggering that response. And I think it's actually quite useful. Like I really wish managers would take it up. But I do think, his work is very geared towards, telling managers how to get better work out of their employees. And, that makes me uncomfortable as a wellness educator oriented towards justice. Like there's no sort of anti-oppression analysis. There's no like question of, is the way that we're doing hierarchies in our workplaces even ethical in the first place? So he uses the SCARF framework. It's status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. The idea that we need to kind of know our place in our social hierarchy and to not feel outside of the social group. And so, for us to get a promotion at work that can make us feel more secure and reduce the stress response. Certainty. So kind of predictability at work, knowing what's going to happen. So if you're a precarious worker, then you're not going to experience a lot of certainty. If you're doing casual shifts filling in at a shelter or something like that, then you really don't know what your week is going to look like. If you're a waitress where you only get your schedule a week in advance and you can't really plan for your creative pursuits, if you're trying to like maybe act or be an artist, you don't have certainty. Autonomy, that's where like you feel like you can actually be creative in your job and that you're trusted to kind of use your expertise as you see fit and your judgment. And I really think of that as like really fundamental things too, like body autonomy and your right to kind of say who comes in your space and who doesn't come in your space, like when you use the bathroom, when you take a break, being able to do those things when your body needs to do those things. So relatedness, that's really connected to social status and the way that we sort of assess people as like friend or foe. And, it really is something that you can't take away from people, except in these like horrible production lines where they purposely separate people so that all they can do is work and they can't chat and they can't, organize. And, that's really diabolical in my opinion. And then of course, fairness, right? So like, that's kind of like a depoliticized word, but it's like justice and equity at work. And so I just think that what we should be thinking about is who has access to more status, more certainty, more autonomy, more relatedness, and more fairness, right? And in our workplaces, it tends to be kind of your cis straight white dudes that are kind of deciding, who gets status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. They're distributing those things. And even if they're doing those things to reduce stress, there's like such a power in that, right? And then, it's mostly those kind of cis white dudes that are at the top of the hierarchy. They have more status, they have their full-time permanent positions. They have the more well-paid positions. They have more autonomy in their position. And, not necessarily more relatedness though. And, then you've got kind of, like immigrants, women, folks with disabilities, people with precarious citizenship status. Ooh, that's hard to say. People that have had like barriers to education, like all of those folks end up being the ones that have less status, less certainty, less autonomy, less relatedness, less fairness, right? They're the people that, are flipping burgers the same way that everybody else working at their company flips burgers all over the world, right? It's a very prescribed way of doing things. And you have to do exactly what your manager says and follow these specifications exactly. While not knowing when your shift is going to be, while, not having much protection for your job, that kind of thing. So I really do think if we're going to use the SCARF model, we have to be thinking about it from a justice point of view. And I think we also have to think of it as ethics and as, hey, this is just, we're human beings at work and we have the right to be treated respectfully, and we have the right to be happy in our lives and for our work not to be a barrier to our health and our happiness. So that's just something I've been thinking about. Never managed to make these short, so if you bore with me this long, thanks so much, and I'll talk to you next time I do one of these. Bye!